First of all, thank you for taking the time to do this and share some insight. And obviously, I want to talk a little bit about journalism and technology and news, but we asked viewers for some questions too, and the one that came up most often, and I think the one I get once in a while, is what is a typical day? Because people want to know how your day is structured and how you prepare for some of the sudden changes that come with it.
I see a stack of questions there from your viewers. Should I be afraid? But the typical day, it's interesting. Every day is different, which, Don, as you know, is part of the joy of being a journalist. And every day we come in here, it is different. Today, the alarm went off 4:15, 4:30 in the morning, and then I went and did Good Morning America. And then after Good Morning America, came to work with the team here at World News Tonight. And so I'm doing double duty this week, which makes for really long days. But I always tell people, don't worry about sleep deprivation, because it's an opportunity to sort of use your different muscles. They're two completely different shows. They're both engaging in their own ways, and it allows you to do some different things. Last week was probably more typical in this role as the evening anchor now. We were on the road in Iowa. We interviewed Jeb Bush. We were lucky enough, the only ones out there on the campaign trail with him so far since he officially announced. And the next night found us, we were found in Charleston, after the horrific shooting there during the Bible study group. And so you never know where the week will take you. And then over the weekend, we flew to Mexico City to work on a story that we'll see in the coming weeks on World News Tonight. So every week, every day brings something entirely different.
And it sounds like such a busy, structured work time. Where's the personal time, and what form does that take?
Well, I always say New York City, we're lucky enough to live in the most, beautiful and vibrant city, big city, probably, in America. There's so many from which to choose, but New York has such an incredible energy to it. I'm from upstate New York, which is why when I heard you wanted to come, absolutely, us upstate New York guys have to stick together. And I'll go home a couple of times this summer. I still love the rolling hills of upstate New York and the Finger Lakes and sort of the quality of life up there. I do feel as though that's my home. But now that I'm in New York, this is sort of my second home. And, even if the free time is limited, there is always something to do and always something to sort of test your mind with here in New York.
Has that helped with your perspective in delivering the news, the upstate mindset, perhaps, as it is?
No question. In fact, I think the success of our series, Made in America, not only do we have an incredible team that works on the series, but for me personally, it's that upbringing in upstate New York. I think about my parents when I put on this broadcast every single night, and my family back home, and in trying to think about families across America and what they want answered at 6:30, the questions they want answered after a day of being bombarded with the headlines all day long now with new technology. People get the news long before they come to us at 6:30, so we can't waste their time if they're going to take time out of the day to come to us. But no question that upbringing in upstate New York has sort of shaped the way I've reported all over the country and really when I travel the world.
How would you describe the status of television news today? We've seen so many changes. We see so many people with personal devices and all of the ways to gather news. And I look back and I say, have we reached the point where the personalities may not, on the local level and the national level, be as important anymore? Or are we going to focus so much on the technology?
Well,
how are we going to shake that out?
It's interesting. Everyone in Rochester obviously knows who you are, and I think it's really valuable in all of these cities across the country to have someone you can trust and someone you can turn to. And I think the value of that is still paramount. Mm-hmm. But I also think that we live in an age that brings enormous opportunity. And I've always said, in Made in America and all these other stories and all these other series that we report on, it really is about the people we're reporting on anyway. And with all the new technology that we have, to be connected in a way that we just couldn't have been 5 years ago or 10 years ago is just an enormous opportunity. I can tweet during the broadcast, during the commercial breaks, or we were periscoping live when I did a commencement speech a couple of weeks back. There are ways where we can reach out and actually interact with an audience, our viewers, so that we really can feel that I'm not just sitting here announcing the news every single night anymore. It's really much more of a two-way conversation.
And I think I look back, we share Ithaca College, of course, as well.
Proudly.
And when I look back at your commencement address, I believe it was, where you challenged young people to use their voice, and I would think there are so many ways for them now to do that, particularly with technology.
Well, that's the thing, I was the kid in upstate New York who would come in from the backyard to watch the local news at night, and I always wanted to be a reporter. But really today, given the tools that we have, I think that everyone has the power to be a reporter, in their own lives and their observations. And what I was saying during that commencement address is to use the power of your voice, because we've been all over the world. We stood in Tahrir Square during the revolution, and so many of the people there fighting for freedom and liberty were only hoping to have some of what we have here. And so my point in talking to the graduates was, don't waste the opportunity, because we all have a voice now, and to use it. Let us know what you're seeing out there, and let us know about the injustices we need to report on, because we can interact now in a way that we couldn't before.
One of the questions that we did get from a viewer, and he's a college professor in the Rochester area, teaches journalism, teaches broadcasting, and wants to know what your challenge would be for someone who is looking to do what we have done, but looking to do it in another decade that's going to be so different from this.
Yeah. Well, we've read all of the reports over the years about the sort of the evolution. Some people think it's that what we do sort of is a dinosaur, the broadcast at the end of the day. And I point out that, in the last year we've seen 500,000 people come back to the evening news. And I think that that's really encouraging. And I think it shows us that even with saturation all day long of all the headlines, when you check your online email and you get the headlines, or you check your smartphone, or you check Twitter, that even though we're bombarded with information all day, that people still yearn for sort of a conversation at night where we all come together, but in a much different way, because we can interact now. And so I say to the young journalists out there, don't worry. This will be here in some form, and probably in a better form than you and I could have imagined, because there are a lot of competing voices, and I think that actually makes us better at what we do. Because the only way to break from the pack is to stand out, to make sure you're doing the storytelling that people at home want, to be asking the questions that they want asked. I don't read, I try not to, the opinions of all the people in the industry. I try to think about the people who are at home taking time out of their day. If they're going to take that time, then we ought to think about what they want on the evening news. This is why this conversation every night at 6:30 is for them.
And I think that term is so appropriate, conversation, because as you look into that lens, I think people do feel you are talking to them one-on-one. It's not presenting the news, but it's really trying to reach through. I'm wondering if it's almost kind of the reassurance in this day, an age where we're getting so much information all day long. The anchor doesn't mean necessarily the person anymore. The anchor is the newscast that kind of sorts that out for people.
Yeah.
Says, this is what really happened.
And the team, as you know, I mean, on the local level, I think that local news is going to be strong for a long time, because you have your local storm, you have your local schools, you have taxes in your community, you have all of those fundamentals that everybody cares about. I think on the national level, I think you're absolutely right, Don. I think it's the team. Mm-hmm. And so people every night, the ones that turn to us, are turning to us for that same team. The familiar faces, Martha Raddatz, who travels the world for us. I try to get out there. I break free from the desk as much as I can. Terry Moran, who was just in Iraq in the last week on the front lines in the fight against ISIS. Brian Ross, Dr. Richard Besser. I mean, all of these names are household names. And it's heartening, but I always remind myself and the team that there's a responsibility that comes with that. If people are going to turn to us, then we have to be thinking about what it is they want us to report at night. And I think that's the fundamental responsibility of all of us in this industry.
And breaking away from the desk is an interesting term you use that. Now, what goes into that decision? Because people, at what point do you say, what, this is the day, this is the story, I think we have to be there? Well,
it's interesting. In just the last, few weeks we've been on the road. We were in Philadelphia for the train crash, obviously, in Charleston for the horrific moment during the Bible study. We were in Iowa. People are thinking, that presidential race is so far away. But we thought, let's go out there and let's find out what makes Jeb Bush tick this early on. And let's ask him what people at home are asking. We've heard from so many who say, are you kidding me? Another Bush or Clinton? I mean, those are our choices. And so I asked him that question. And, he was ready to answer that question. I think that's going to be a hurdle he faces and a hurdle that Hillary Clinton faces if they become the nominees for their party. So as long as you're asking what you think people at home are hoping to, and they let you know. They let you know if you don't, which I love too. That sort of dictates when we go out on the road. And of course, last weekend we traveled to Mexico City, as I mentioned, on a story that we'll have in the coming weeks on World News Tonight. And we try to fit those in within reason, because we do need a little bit of weekend time to sort of recoup too.
How will this presidential campaign and election differ from just 4 years ago in terms of media coverage, in terms of how we address it and how we present it?
Well, it's interesting. You look at those images of the candidates when they do field questions. And there's been a lot of news about how often they take those questions and how willing they are. But when they do take the questions, the sea of reporters, it's not just the three main networks maybe that were there 20 years ago. Now you have all the blogs and all the cable networks, and the extraordinary amount of information that we have out there, and the number of people who travel with these campaigns and press them for answers on all the issues, I actually think is a good thing. Yeah. I think it's a grueling sort of tour for any of these candidates, and I always keep that in mind, that regardless of anyone's political views, to put themselves out there and the sacrifice their family makes this far out before Election Day, we always have to keep that in mind too, regardless of how you feel about their politics.
I don't want to overstay my welcome, so stop me whenever, but I do want to talk a little bit about Ithaca College, so we can share that with them. Because I know, looking back over 50 years, I credit them with much of what I've been able to do, and I'm curious as to how Ithaca College played a role in your obvious success.
Well, from the moment you walk in the door at that school, the Park School, it's hands-on. You're out there, you're reporting, you're practicing, you're carrying the equipment, you're making it better, you're editing and re-editing, and I think that is a tremendous gift they give you from day one, that in a lot of other universities, I'm not sure it's the same. I'm not sure you don't spend a couple of years before you get your hands on as much as you can.
I think we always said in Syracuse you had to be a graduate student before you
practice being a reporter.
Yeah, I mean, I think that practical experience made all the difference.
Yeah. And I grew up in Syracuse, and Newhouse has a tremendous reputation, and I think I just wanted to get away from home, but perhaps not too far. So I ended up just a little further down Route 81.
And you can see why I relate to Rod Wood a little bit from Syracuse.
Yeah.
Are those days gone locally, the Rod Woods, the Irv Weinstein?
Listen, Rod Wood and Kerry Lazarus are still a dominant force in Syracuse, and they're on the ABC station, and I don't think those days are gone. I think actually those days are here, and they're more important than ever, because we're bombarded, as I said, with information all day long, and people have to know that they've got the people that they can trust and turn to at the end of the day. And that's why you're doing so well still after all these years. We admire what you're doing and have done in Rochester. And listen, I walk down that hallway every single day, and there are photographs in the hall that will remind you, if you're not thinking of it yourself, that Peter Jennings walked down that hallway, Charlie Gibson did, Diane Sawyer did. And not only do I have a responsibility to the viewers, but I have a responsibility to them. They mentored me, they befriended me, and I'm grateful for that, and so I don't take it lightly. I try to do my best, and I think that's all you can do every night when you come out here.
And had it not been this, what else might you have done with life?
Well, who knows? I hope I don't have to have a plan B. I've wanted to be a reporter for a really, really long time, and I think I would have, even if I didn't end up on the anchor desk for the network news, I think I would have been in some field where you were exploring and interacting with people and trying to discover, new things every single day. What a gift we have to be able to do that every single day. And people shape what you see, how you think every single day in new ways, and I love that. That's why I love the simple subway ride to work every morning here at World News.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
That's great.
Great to have you. Come back anytime.
I would have kept going.
I know, that was fun.
I'm waiting for a voice to say, hey.
It's more fun than what I have to do after.
Welcome, Mr.